Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are. It's me again, Jen. Hello! And we are reading all month long, all October long, all spooky season long from the Witches Tarot, which the design on the back is very simple and very witchy. The cards themselves are incredibly well done, very photorealistic, anatomically correct, very anatomically correct, beautifully drawn cards that stick to the symbology of witchcraft and Wicca and things of that nature. So, if you are trying to learn not only the tarot but also some other witchy things, these cards may actually be super helpful as teaching tools. So, with that said, there are a couple of different cards in here as well, and then we've also noticed that there are some cards that are super similar to one another and kind of make the deck itself pretty boring in some respects. But I like them all the more just because they stick to the symbolism. All right, so let's move on and see what card we have for today before I blather my way through. Oh, good. Okay, this is fantastic. Speaking of photorealistic, I did pull out most of the nudity in this deck. I left the butts in there. I figured I'd get away with that. All right. So hopefully YouTube doesn't pull this one down because there are naked tushies in the image. But the other thing I want to point out about this, and it is hard to tell because I'm going to start with how the font is super not right for this. You really weren't going to win on this. A light font would have gotten lost over here. A dark font gets lost kind of in the weeds over here, literally. So this is the horned god, right? The horned one, sorry, the horned one. And I'm going to give everybody half a second. Yes, it is the devil. So while it is typical to have the devil card represented with, his horns and everything going on, in this case, in this deck, because it is pagan and there is not a devil in the pagan religion, in pagan spirituality, we have the horned god. And the horned god does kind of still represent a lot of the similar stuff that the devil might represent. So the horned god in this case is kind of our wild, more instinctive, more kind of, I guess, feral energy. Is that fair to say? I think that's fair to say. So there is moonlight. So we've got that, yes, this is darkness. This is our shadow side. This is the side of ourselves that we kind of only let out by the light of the moon. This is where the werewolf thing kind of comes in as well. We get a little feral energy, a little wild. And we have our naked people because obviously they're not wearing clothes, so they're a little more wild than the rest of us, especially outside. I believe in witchcraft it is called being sky-clad, so we'll just throw that in there as a little vocabulary word for everybody. And the horned god represents all of that kind of stuff, that feral, wild, untamed side of us. While typically the devil card will represent kind of a bad connection with that, being addiction and letting ourselves be a little too free about things and not being able to work with society and kind of being chained down to our own baser instincts. In this case, I think it takes it in a lighter way of connecting to our instincts and connecting to our freer, more natural selves. I would say that this card is probably one of the weird ones in that I would read it better upright than inverted. Whereas the typical devil card, when you read it upright, it is that attachment to addictions and our baser selves. Whereas inverted, it is the release from those things and kind of coming to terms with those things and learning how to cope with that. In this case, upright, it would represent the freedom of our instinctive nature and being one with nature and not having to conform to societal norms that may be damning. While in reverse, it is doing those things but to the detriment of yourself and others. So, my one caveat with this deck is when you get a card that is like this, maybe you also want to kind of reverse the symbolism and the meaning on it. That is up to the reader. That is up to you. but it is a unique way of looking at this card. And I'm just going to say that there are things that I have read with this card that I'm like, yeah, that probably applied better to read it upright as the positive and inverted as the negative. So, and when I say negative, it is the things that would be not so conducive to your growth processes. Let's put it that way. So, I also really like that the people in this are not necessarily chained, which obviously would change the meaning immediately. If they were chained to this god, that would be back to the devil aspect, where yes, it is the male and female people who are then chained by the neck to the cauldron or the pedestals where the devil stands or sits, whatever that may be. But this one god seems very jovial. He's looking down on them like they are his children and saying, hey, it's okay, run free, be free, get connected to nature again, connect with that feral part of yourselves. But again, don't get carried away. So I like this card. I like that it fits with the mythos of paganism and witchcraft. And I like that you can read it with that aspect in mind. I don't know. That's just me. I love this card. This is one of my favorites in the deck. I think this might have been why I picked this deck. It didn't have the devil card. But either way, I hope that you get in touch with some of your witchy self and your more feral, wild side a little bit. Maybe by the light of the full moon. Who knows? Be careful of werewolves. That's all I got to say about that during spooky season. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay spooky.